Today we're going over Chapter 23 of the Silmarillion, of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. If you're new here, welcome to the Heart of Halfling. We talk about Lord of the Rings and do some Lord of the Ring things. So let's get started. So, this chapter begins with reminding the reader that Tuor married a woman named Drian. Now, Tuor goes and fights in the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, the near North Anodadad, where he dies. And a few months later, Drian gives birth to a son named Tuor in the wilds of Mithram. Now, shortly after naming Tuor, she passes away, and Tuor is fostered by the Grey Elves of Mithram. Here he remains for 16 years in the caves of Andrath. After the 16 years, the Grey Elves decide that they should probably go south to the havens of Silmarilion, but they don't get far. They're quickly attacked by orcs and Easterlings, and here Tuor is taken captive by the chief of the Easterlings, Lorgan, and is enslaved for the next 3 years. After the 3 years, it says that Tuor manages to escape and goes back to the caves of Andrath, where he remains for 4 years, and during the 4 years he creates havoc on all the Easterlings that he comes across, to the point where Lorgan ends up putting a bounty on his head. Now, at the end of this 4 years, Ulmo sets upon Tuor's heart to go west towards the sea. Ulmo has chosen Tuor to be the person to fulfill his plans. So Tuor finds the tunnels created by the people of Turgon and is able to go west without anybody on Morgoth's side knowing about this escape. Now, when he gets to Nevras, he's greeted by Belagar, the Great Sea, and is enamored by the ocean. He falls in love with the sound, the smells, everything about it. And it says here he remains for a summer season, and that the doom of Nargothrond is kind of building in the background. And towards the end of the summer, it says that Tuor sees 7 great swans fly south, and he knows that this is a sign that he's been here too long and he needs to kind of keep going. So Tuor finds Vinyamar, the previous home of Turgon, where Tuor finds the shield, hauberk, sword, and helm that Turgon had left behind by the command of Ulmo. He adorns all of these things and goes back to the sea, where there is a great storm, and Ulmo reveals himself to Tuor and tells him that he has to go to Gondolin. He has to warn Turgon and the people to get out of Gondolin, and as aid, he provides a robe or cloak that will shadow Tuor from any enemies of Morgoth. Out of this storm also comes Veronwe, who is one of the elves of Gondolin that Turgon had sent to sail to Valinor to ask for aid from the Valar. Veronwe is the only one that survived this quest, and together they go to Gondolin. And just briefly, there's a point in here on their journey to Gondolin where it says that they see like this line of destruction from Glaurung, and they see a tall man cloaked in black carrying a black sword, but they don't say anything to each other and they both just keep going their ways. I'm pretty sure he ran into Turin, and I think that's kind of funny that Tolkien included that. Anyways, so Tuor and Veronwe get to Gondolin, and he is able to prove that he's from Ulmo because he's, carrying all these items that Turgon had left behind. And so the two are brought forth to Turgon, and standing next to Turgon is Maglin and Idril. So Tuor is showing that he's no mere mortal man. Everybody can hear the words that he's using, the way that he's talking, that this is a man who has spoken to a Valar. And Tuor tells Turgon that Ulmo has warned him and his people that they have to leave Gondolin now, that Gondolin is no longer safe. They need to leave, and they need to go to Silmarilion, where Ulmo can better protect them. However, Turgon, over the course of Gondolin, has become very prideful. He also has Maglin telling him that Tuor is in the wrong and basically speaking out against Tuor. So Turgon's like, no. Gondolin's fine. We're going to remain here. But just in case, we'll block up the entrance to Gondolin. So the entrance is blocked up. And now Turgon is only informed of the things that are happening around Arda by the eagles, who are informing him of the fall of Nargothrond, the ruin of Doriath, the killing of Thingol, and the death of Tuor. And so now Turgon's makes a vow that he's never going to ally with any of the sons of Feanor. Now, during this time, Idril also has this foreboding feeling that Turgon should have listened to Olmo. And so without anyone knowing, Turgon Maglin, she crafts a tunnel as an escape from Gondolin just in case something happens. So time goes by, Tuor and Idril fall in love with one another. Tuor gains some favor with Turgon and gets his blessing to marry Idril, and the two are wed. Now, this greatly upsets Maglin, who desires Idril for himself, wants to be the next heir to Gondolin, so he's not really happy with this union, but doesn't matter. Tuor and Idril still marry. A year later, they have a son named Erendil, who is fair of skin and who loves the water just as much as his father does. Now, it says that while Erendil is still young, Maglin goes off to mine for material for swords and armor and other things. And this is something that Maglin does often. This isn't unusual. However, something that is not known to Turgon is that Maglin would often venture outside of the borders, further than he should be going. And at one point he ventures farther out than he should and is attacked by orcs. Now, Morgoth had orcs set about in this area searching out Gondolin because Hurin unknowingly betrayed Turgon by shouting out at Turgon for not bringing him to Gondolin. And this informed Morgoth of the general region of Gondolin. And so there's orcs set about, and when Maglin ventures too far, he's captured by some of these orcs and taken to Angband, where he's tortured, and Morgoth is trying to get the location of Gondolin. Maglin, of course, reveals where Gondolin is when Morgoth tells him that he can have control over Gondolin and he can have Idril for his own. So Maglin gives up the location. Morgoth then sends him back to Gondolin saying, go back. We don't want to create any suspicion. Just sit and wait. So Maglin goes back. Now it says that Erendil turns 7 years old or becomes 7 years old, and everybody in Gondolin is on the eastern walls, and it's nighttime, and they're awaiting the rising of the sun to bring about the summer season. And they're all waiting there to sing this song and to start this festival. And as they're waiting for light from the east, light instead comes from the north, where orcs and balrogs and dragons, the hordes of those of Glaurung, all come over and begin to attack Gondolin. And here we have Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, and Turgon fight, and the two end up dying at this point. Now Tuor is going to rescue Idril and his son Erendil, but he finds that Maglin is holding the two of them. So Tuor goes, fights Maglin, throws him over the walls of Gondolin, where he falls and dies in this fiery pit. So now Tuor and Idril are trying to gather any survivors that they can to escape out of the tunnel that she has crafted. So as they are trying to go towards their tunnel, they are ambushed by a bunch of orcs and a Balrog who have been commanded to guard and encircle the mountains. And they think all hope is lost, but Glorfindel, the chief of the House of the Golden Flower, appears to their aid, comes, fights, and kills the Balrog, as well as dies himself. But now Idril and Tuor are able to escape with the other survivors just fine. So they escape through the mountains and are able to go south towards Sirion. Now, Morgoth believes that he is completely triumphant. Everything is done. Nargothrond is gone. Doriath is gone. And now Gondolin is gone. It doesn't matter that he is missing one of the Silmarils. He has won. And everything is great. Now, whether he knows that elves are gathering in Sirion is unknown. It's just known that he never attacks them. So, now at Sirion, we have the survivors of Gondolin. We also have the survivors of Doriath, including Elwing, and we have Círdan's mariners and Gil-galad. So here, Gil-galad is informed of the death of Turgon, and that because of this, he is now the next High King of the Noldor. So Círdan's mariners and everyone gathered together under the protection of Olmo and began to build ships. Now during this time, Olmo is going back to Valinor, pleading with the Valar to come to the aid of elves and men. But Manwë is unmoved by this speech. It says that, the counsel of his heart is unknown, but that more than likely the curse of Fëanor has to play out before Manwë can really do anything. So no aid from the Valar comes yet. Now Tuor grows to old age with Idril and Sirion, and builds a ship named Aranme, or the Sea Wing. And it says that Tuor and Idril board the ship together and sail towards Valinor, and what happens to them is unknown. But it's elven tradition to believe that Tuor and Idril make it to Valinor. Tuor is counted among the elder race and is believed to be immortal like the Noldor, and sunders himself from the fate of men. So here ends chapter 23. I don't have a whole ton to say about this chapter. It's a good story. It's a very short chapter, very good telling. But really, you can tell that this is just kind of a build-up, really quick telling of what happens to Gondolin. If you want to know more, there's the fall of Gondolin, which we will get to at a later point. And really, this sets up Arendelle and Gil-galad and all of that. So I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on this. The next chapter, I'm sure I will have a ton of thoughts. So stay tuned for next week. But otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this very brief video. I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed week, and may your homes be filled with food and cheer. Bye!